I knew what he was to begin with. I noticed when we had this conversation about 3 weeks ago, Stephen A., I was trending because I said Brock Purdy wasn't elite. Now all of a sudden, I ain't getting nothing. Nobody was on my timeline. Shannon doesn't know what he's talking about. Shannon's a hater. He's jealous. I didn't get any of that last night. Remember, I said if you remove that hedge, it's amazing. The Minnesota Vikings and Brian Flores says, you know what? We're taking Christian McCaffrey away. We refuse to let him run the football.
Let's go.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy JT here. I got Dub here with me. Together we make up any arena. So let's go ahead and get into it. Trouble in the Yay area. San Francisco 49ers took a mean beating by the Minnesota Vikings last night. The most surprising thing to me was simply that the Vikings did this without Jay Jettis. They did this without their best receiver. Big shout out to Jordan Addison. He's on my fantasy team. Big night last night, 120 plus yards, 2 touchdowns. Kirk Cousins in prime time. Very surprising what we saw last night. Doug, what are your thoughts on San Francisco losing this game, now dropping 2 games in a row? The kicker missed another field goal last night that ultimately could have cost them the game. What are your thoughts on the San Francisco 49ers at this point?
Yeah. So in back-to-back weeks, I've picked the opponent of the 49ers to win the game. So I'm 2-0 with those picks, just to throw that out there. Everything else was pretty bad on my part this week with my picks. Nonetheless, I think the 49ers are going to be okay. You know, the season, and I always mention this, it ebbs and flows, and you have to peak at the right time. The 49ers came out strong, very dominant team. I still have them as the favorites in the NFC, but you're going to run it up against teams that match up well with you, and it's your job not to make critical mistakes. Brock Purdy made too many critical mistakes yesterday. Will he make those mistakes again? Possibly, but he's been pretty flawless up to this point. It's okay. So I think the 49ers are fine. They still have Christian McCaffrey as long as he can stay healthy because he is fragile. They'll be fine. Once they get Trent Williams back left guard, that's going to give Brock Purdy more time for protection. That way he don't have to do, quick reads. He can be a little bit more accurate. He can go through his progressions and such. So I have no qualms about what's going to happen with the 49ers. And I think we're on to something here with the Minnesota Vikings. I think the Vikings actually have a good team. And I realized that a few weeks ago. The problem is just the unfortunate ending of games. And that's happened to them on previous occasions, even last year. So I think the Vikings actually have a really good football team. They just have to put it all together. So I think the 49ers are not in trouble, but the Vikings are better than we think they are.
Yeah, great analysis. I would have to disagree. I do think the 49ers are in trouble. When we get to looking at the stats from last night, 0 sacks on the Minnesota Vikings. So you got Bosa up front, you got Fred Warner, you got a talented defense who didn't have any sacks last night on the Minnesota Vikings. That's alarming to me. Going into this game, Bosa's production has been down overall. When you look at the 18 and a half sacks that he put up last season, I think he's on track for maybe 10 sacks this season. So I think that's a bit alarming. The other thing that's alarming to me is 378 passing yards is what the Minnesota Vikings had on the San Francisco 49ers last night. I think to some extent, his defense has been exposed. We know that San Francisco has a solid defense. We thought the defense was elite. We have to ask ourselves now. You go to a game in Minnesota, you get 0 sacks, you give up 378 passing yards, 2 touchdowns to Jordan Addison. Kirk Cousins looked like the guy that Dub always says that he is. And I have a hard time again because when you look at the tape, when you look at Kirk Cousins, he always looks great. In game, you're like, what is Kirk Cousins doing? It's a myriad of different things going on. But when you look back at the tape, he is a guy who protects the ball and plays good football. Did I expect the 49ers to come in here and not sack him once? No. There's no universe in which I would have gave you an answer if you asked me, do they get any sacks on Kirk Cousins, and it's 0? I don't think that happens. I think Minnesota prepped for this game. They took this game serious. They knew it was a home game. They had an opportunity to win. They protected their quarterback and they got the ball downfield on this San Francisco 49ers secondary. I think the 49ers are going to have to figure out some different schemes to run as a defense because last night what happened when they play when they play teams that are a little bit better than the Vikings. Not to say the Vikings are bad. Again, I picked the Vikings to do really well in that division. The Detroit Lions, to Dub's earlier prediction in the season, are doing what we thought they would do. But I picked the Vikings to be doing a little better than they are right now, so they're not a bad team.
No, they're not.
But when you look at what the 49ers are going to have to go through to get to a Super Bowl, which to me is Super Bowl or bust for this team, they are in trouble. They're in trouble. If the Cowboys pull it together and Dak Prescott starts playing better, we already know what the Eagles are going to do for sure, right? So don't even think about the Cowboys. Think about the Eagles and that receiving core and Jalen Hurts, what they could do to this defense. I think the 49ers are going to have to do some deep internal looking and figure out where they go from here.
No, for sure. I think it really starts in the trenches. The trenches look okay. They look fine, but when you're dealing with a quarterback like Kirk Cousins that's highly prepared, he's not keeping that ball in his hand for too long. He's not holding on to the ball. That secondary need to tighten the hell up. They need to tighten the hell up. Although the Vikings are extremely explosive offensively, the secondary for the 49ers, they do need to tighten up.
For sure. Well, listen, you heard it here first. If you're a 49ers fan, give us your thoughts. Are y'all still going to the Super Bowl? Are y'all going to win the Super Bowl? Because right now, listen, if the 49ers don't win this year, I got to put them in the same boat as the Cowboys. Like, again, America's team to some extent, a lot of clout, a lot of gravitas when it comes to the 49ers. But do they ever win the big game? When's the last time they won a Super Bowl? Hey, they're in the same boat right now. Give us your thoughts below. CLS treatment, comment, like, subscribe. We'll be back with more from it in the arena.